Katulad ng PSA na sampling. Nagsasample rin yung listahanan, pero basically, as you said, it's derived from the ground.
MTFF assumption. Then how come the administration does not use the 30% figure of DSWD, the more accurate figure? Kaya yung plano niya sa 2028, by the time the President exits, 9% na lang daw, single digit na daw ang poverty incidence rate. Kawawa naman kung hindi talaga ma-achieve because he assumed 18 or 22% ng assumption. I'm getting the MTFF assumptions, Mr. President.
So on, paiba-iba. So, eto nga.
Kawawa kasi Presidente rin, Mr. Presidente. Sa SONA niya, he mentions figures eh.
Yes, 18%
pati unemployment rate. Naki-question natin, tinanong natin ang doli. Mali-mali din ang mga figures. So ito, kung sabihin ng Presidente, poverty incidence rate will be down to 9% at the end of his term. Yun ang sabi.
But the goal.
The starting point is 22%. If the DSWD figures are to be believed, mali. It should laid out for us the differences between NEP 2024, the House bill, and the Senate committee report budget levels, especially for the office of the secretary. Doon po yung malalaking changes eh. But admittedly, even the Senate committee level for the office of the secretary is higher than what the executive proposed, Mr. President, by, if I'm not mistaken, 32 billion.
32 billion,
Yes,
yes.
32 billion.
Yeah.
So,
This constitutes the 33.312 billion constitutes the House increases.
Again, Mr. President, 32, yung committee report po natin increases the NEP by 32 billion. The House version, more than our increases. So sige nga, did we retain the proposed House increases? Hindi. Not in totality.
In the meantime, we retained, but there's also a significant reduction in the Senate version.
Around 1 billion.
Yes, not quite. 800 million.
Okay, around 800 million. What PAPs were affected by our reduction? Compared to the GAB?
I think the reduction involved the 4Ps.
Amount.
Those who have graduated and also different projects such as the reduction in the sustainable livelihood, I believe, as it has already been encompassed by other projects.
Sige, yun yung the sustainable livelihood program is meant, ito po, yun yung aking understanding, is meant to be the follow-up program for those who have improved their life circumstances under the 4Ps program. Tama po ba yun? Parang graduated yun, di ba? From 4Ps, you now go to SLP?
Yes, that's correct. But the SLP is also involves other projects in the Kalahi seeds and others.
Yun.
So I think there's an effort to streamline and simplify these livelihood projects.
The magic words have been mentioned, Mr. President. That's why if SLP contains the Kalahi seeds, that's why I fail to understand what SLP is all about, because I really do not understand what Kalahi seeds is. So, siguro, we will devote time, siguro, Mr. President, para maintindihan po natin, no? Okay. Okay, Kalahi seeds is what? A program of the DSWD?
Yes, the Kalahi Seeds, as we know, is Kaunlaran at Kabuhayan sa Barangay KKB. And this was a program that started in the early 2000s. First, it was foreign funded. As we recall, there were OSAID grants derived by then Secretary Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. So matagal na to, mga tira-tira na to. Yung iba rito, nanggaling sa foreign funded, sa World Bank, ngayon nag-a-apply na naman sa ADB. Yung iba naman, totally locally funded. So among the modalities, yung kauna-unahan, yung community-driven development. So there's a 500 million here na binibigay sa LGU to choose kung ano yung gusto nila. Whether it's an artisan well or a farm-to-market road, bahala yung LGU. So isa yung ganon. And then there's also the pag-abot na project, which is a reach-out project for street dwellers, which is also affiliated with another project of one of our colleagues, and that's the Balik Probinsya. Pag alis nila sa mga lansangan, dadalhin sila sa probinsya. So that's back-to-back, pag-abot at saka balik probinsya. Pagkatapos nito, meron tayong iba't ibang cash for work, which is derived from the 2022 APRO, yung na-extend natin dahil sa COVID, yung cash for work. Eto na naman yung mga persons with disabilities, may 300 million for the graduates and college students who are unable to find work post-pandemic, may 1 billion dyan. And then there's a new pilot project called the Tarabasa Tutoring Program, which endows the tutor for a 20-day period, 2 hours a day, with a budget of 900 million. Hindi pa tayo natatapos dyan. Maliban pa dyan sa mga community-driven, meron pa yung projects nila sa former conflict areas. Eto na si Pamana. And yung Pamana projects, they're all limited to the areas that were formerly insurgency afflicted. Tapos, may local, that's a local project. Finally, there is a PMNP. Ito naman, foreign-funded Philippine Multi-Sectoral Nutrition Project. Kasama na naman dyan yung supplemental feeding, pero ito yung foreign component. So labo-labo po to.
Kaya nga parang nakita ko na parang the program wants to be a mini government, but ang main function is to extend assistance. Yan lang. Basta iba-iba kahit anong problema. Pero so if this is a program, sige nga, how long has this been a program of the DSWD? Huwag na muna natin pag-usapan yung components of the program, but as a program.
I believe that this has been going on for over 20 years because I recall that
Can we have the year? I think DSWD should know the year.
2003. So this is a 20-year program, and in 2017, the minority leader himself initially proposed the Kalahi KKB. I believe that seems to be on record as one of your initiatives po.
Well, I think I will disown that that initiative. I have no idea. I have no recollection, Mr. President, that I have understood this Kalahi program. So I would not have proposed that, Mr.
I
President.
believe it has morphed since the time you initially proposed it
Okay.
as a community development program.
If it's is this program intended to have a natural lifespan? Is this program to expire in the future?
Yung foreign funded infra last year and next year.
Yes, if we notice the World Bank foreign-funded infra component, the infra component will already expand by the end of 2024, December. So yun, patapos na yun. Yung OSAID is long gone. I think there's an application for additional funding with the ADB naman, and this is for more additional community-driven development programs. So, may natatapos naman po.
Hindi, pero since meron pa tayo ADB application. We don't intend it to end in the near future, bale. Yeah, we're extending the program. We're borrowing pa ADB. Yun po.
These are exploratory talks. There's nothing firm yet. But the effects, the intention of this community-driven development program na humihingi sila ng additional funding was to respond to the effects of COVID and the continuing disasters in its wake. So, yung mga far-flung provincial communities ang ina-address niyan.
Does this, since this looks like it's a very important program of the DSWD and also well-funded and it has a large budgetary impact, meron naman siguro kayong comprehensive brochure about this program? Sige nga, pag-aralan, pag kailangan po yata ito talaga
Yes,
upuan na, opo, Mr. President.
Yes, tama po si Minority Leader. Actually, I compelled them to list all the different modalities since there seem to be so many different forms and shapes of this program. Essentially, I believe this has been work in progress. Every time there's some kind of an emergency, a program is birthed from the disaster, the epidemic, and all other calamities.
Sige po, sige. But since we're talking about the budget, sige, para po na maintindihan po natin, no? The budget for the Office of the Secretary in the committee report, 241.8 billion. Okay, how much of this would be under the Kalahi SIDS program?
It's 2.9. It's 2.9. Originally 3.82. It's now 2.934 billion.
Okay. 2.9 billion pesos. Of that, 241 is for the Kalahi SIDS program. And this is the 2.9 are the locally generated funds. May foreign component pa ito?
Wala. That's already our share. That's the breakdown I read earlier among the different projects like the Pag-abot, Balik Probinsya, Cash for Work, etc. That's all locally funded.
Loan proceeds to be devoted to Kalahi?
Magkano? Yes. There's only one loan left. I think that's a 3.7 billion
Okay.
for additional financing of the post-COVID loan.
Additional finance.
And our counterpart and payment is contained in the unprogrammed section. So that's
Yes, how much doon?
the loan proceeds is Yes, it's 3.7 billion.
Yes, okay. Sir. Unprogrammed po ito? Unprogrammed
Yes,
appropriation.
it's right now in the unprogrammed, although there's a request that it be included in the GAA given the delays and sometimes the uncertainty of unprogrammed
Okay.
items.
If this item in the unprogrammed appropriations to the tune of 3.7 billion, should it be released? Okay, may possibility naman ma-release yun.
Oo naman.
So, I will add this to the 2.9 billion. So, 6.6 billion ang ating
Altogether.
budget for Kalahi SIDS.
Yes,
Klaro?
2.9 plus 3.7.
Sige. Okay. Pero, of course, the four-piece program's budget dwarfs the Kalahi SIDS budget. How much is our four-piece program?
I think it's upwards of 50% of the budget of the department. It's 112,835 million.
It's now 103.
It's now been reduced actually by the Senate.
Okay.
From the original amount, it's now 103,953 million.
Okay.
And actually, there have been questions about the reduction because they've been spun out to different projects.
Now, how come itong four-piece is also a regular program of the DSWD?
Yes, that's the largest program.
Since when?
Since 2007, I believe it started out as a pilot project that was ratcheted up as phase 2 and phase 3.
So it started.
It's actually been going on for, what is it, now?
16 years.
15? Yeah?
16 years.
2007.
2007. Okay.
Yeah.
Kaya nga, but if we look at the amounts given to the program, masyadong volatile. Can you explain why the volatility in the amount given to the program?
Central budget natin is 4 years.
Yeah.
That's a constant.
I think it's been a constant. It's always been roughly 50% of the DSWD budget. Parang ever since yan na talaga yung amount. Over time, it's always 50%. 1.4 million households constantly being serviced. 4.4 million households. They're the target households because that's so far what we can afford.
Hindi, yung answer na it's always 50% of the budget, parang all the more naging arbitrary eh. So, it's just a formula, then we set aside the amount for a 4-piece program. What I meant when I said volatile,
Yes.
volatile kasi, for
Yes.
example, ngayon sa budget process, ang amount niya patalon-talon eh. 112 billion is was the proposal of the House or of the NEP. And then Senate version 103. We can just discard 9 billion, ganun lang ba yun?
That's in the Senate version. Being that in our assessment, at least in the committee, there were quite a few had graduated or by natural circumstances became disqualified. Wala na silang minor children. So natanggal na sila sa listahan. And the exit strategy always is, pagkatapos na ng 4-piece, mag-sustainable livelihood and they can avail of other training programs.
Doon ako interesado nga sa graduates eh, kasi if the program which is meant to assist the poorest of the poor or including the poor, ano ba itong programa?
I think we have to say it's only the poorest of the poor because our cutoff is always at 4.4 households when we know for a fact that there are probably more who would qualify. There's a very large waiting list, particularly after the pandemic.
So we look at the households. What is, from the point of view of the DSWD, the Philippines is composed or comprised of how many households, Mr. President?
Total household.
4.7 million
Tapos 4.7 million household dollars.
Sorry?
Officially, statistics po
Yes.
natin is 4.7 million
Percentage calculator.
Yes. Whereas DSWD is only able to service 4.4, the PSA states that there's a 4.7 impoverished household figure. So there's still a significant number that await some help.
Yes, but siyempre, if you talk about households, siguro the DSWD has an idea how many total households in the Philippines, kasama Forbes Park. Yan ang tanong ko.
Total.
Yung total. Opo.
Because they always deal with the poor.
No,
I think it's upwards of 20 million households.
20 million households.
Oo. Pero dun sa 20 million, yung considered poor, nasa 6 million. Ang nasa service, 4.4. Tama ba? Mali yung sinabi kanina. Mali yung sinabi kanina.
Yan na naman tayo, yung PSA, talagang pinapabalik natin bukas dahil yung pagdating talaga sa
Okay.
statistics, mali-mali tayo.
Tama.
So what is now the final
Now,
answer?
yes, so it seems
Pero Mr. President, ang kawawa si PSA, siya ang pinapabalik.
Tama. Actually, di ba nagka-problema na tayo dyan kasi yung listahanan kung family versus household, tapos yung poverty thresholds, iba-iba rin kasi. Tapos ngayon, nasa CGMP naman tayo, iba na namang listahan yon. So, in any case, apparently there are 20 million households recorded in the Philippines. 6 million are assumed to be poor. 4.4 million are actually served by the 4-piece program.
from the point of view of our policymakers and program designers in the DSWD, 6 million households are, you assume them to be poor.
Yes.
Tama? Yun po narinig
That's
ko.
the finding
Are
of the
assumed to be
PSA.
poor.
Well, that's the finding of the PSA.
Kala ko 4.7.
Ah, sorry. Now it turns out it's not PSA to blame.
Okay.
It turns out it's the DSWD's own listahanan 3 that says 6 million are in fact poor out of the 20.
Okay. Kaya ko tinatanong yun kasi nag-ratio percentaging ako eh.
Tama.
6 of 20, 30%. 30%. 30% households.
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very large sum.
If we should follow that, then poverty incidence rates surveys must be in the vicinity of 30%. Is that the admission or the data of the current administration that the poverty incidence rate right now is 30%? Ano? Kuya, tigil ko na.
The percent.
Level natin is at 19%. 18.
Yes, I think that the poverty level that's officially stated is always 18%. But by these numbers, the minority leader is right. It's upwards of 30+%. So there needs
Sinong
to be
paniniwalaan natin?
a distinction between the two.
Kasi yung listahan, hindi naman buong country pina-assess.
Yes, I think it boils down to listahanan's weaknesses, and that's because listahanan does not assess the entire 20 million, but a mere 15 million. May tinira pang 5 million eh. And we should also probably consider that listahanan was finished during the time of COVID, so that the indicators would also...
So we could be wasting money actually, giving to households who should not have qualified, if that is the reasoning, Mr. President.
Sinasabi yung mga edge areas dito sa
I think there's a focus in the listahanan on the hunger hotspots, the really poverty-ridden areas, and they don't include the more prosperous regions. And as a result, it's skewed toward poverty, kaya napakataas.
Hindi. Even if yung 5 million na hindi nyo sinurvey, consider na natin hindi poor, it's still 30%.
It's still 30%, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense, Mr. President.
Kasi you still boil down to 4.7 out of 15. So, malaki pa rin eh. This has always been the discussion. I think there's always been a problem with poverty data, and I'd be the first to say so, because as a governor, I had to disaggregate my own provincial data with great difficulty. Dahil unang-una nga, iba yung household at saka family, tapos yung consideration ng poor, malnourished, and so on, pa-iba-iba. So, eto nga.
Kawawa kasi presidente rin, Mr. Presidente. Sa zona niya, he mentions figures eh.
Yes,
Kaya
18% nga.
Pati unemployment rate, naki-question natin, tinanong natin ang doli. Mali-mali din ang mga figures. So ito, kung sabihin ng presidente, poverty incidence rate will be down to 9% at the end of his term. Yun ang sabi.
That's
but
the goal.
The starting point is 22%. If the DSWD figures are to be believed, mali. It should be 30%. Then how can he bring it down to 9% at the end of his term, Mr. President? So let's help the administration. We help the president by feeding him correct figures, or siguro may factual basis naman po yung ating mga figures, hindi lang siguro baka desktop or tabletop calculations lang po ito. Actually, I appreciate niya the listahanan eh. Kasi ang assumption ko niyan, from the ground, sinuyod niyo po yung...
That's correct.
ground.
Kasi may mga pangalan yan eh.
Oh.
Hindi katulad ng PSA na sampling. Nagsasample rin yung listahanan, pero basically, as you said, it's derived from the ground.
MTFF assumption. Then how come the administration does not use the 30% figure of DSWD, the more accurate figure? Kaya yung plano niya sa 2028, by the time the President exits, 9% na lang daw, single digit na daw ang poverty incidence rate. Kawawa naman kung hindi talaga ma-achieve because he assumed 18 or 22% ng assumption. I'm getting the MTFF assumptions, Mr. President.
Yung lowest 40% of
Yes, I think the idea or the strategy of the DSWD is to saturate the poorest barangays. So yung more prosperous are excluded in their listing, which probably bloats the poverty number to 30%.
It
Kasi
does not-
saturation of rural and urban poor yan eh.
Secretary, with your people, it does not nga eh. That's my point. Even if we assume that the unsurveyed 5 million
Are all
are
rich.
all rich, 30% pa rin ang, mas masama nga yung sinasabi nyo na 6 million of the 15 are poor. Ano na yun eh? 30 plus percent, 36%, more than 36%.
Mas malaki talaga ever since yung DSWD working figures for poverty than PSA. Mulat sa poll, there's always been that disconnect.
Pero,
And we've
I mean-
always questioned it here in the Senate. And the answer has always been that their focus is to saturate the rural and urban poor barangays.
Yeah, but the administration which the secretary is part of, okay? Your success will be measured against your promises. Tandaan nyo, the president promised at the end of his term, single-digit poverty incidence rate. Ang interpretation ko doon, not more than 9%.
Correct.
Okay. And of course, may assumption siya. Di ba saan siya nag-umpisa? Di ba? Nung na-turnover sa administration niya, may assumption siya. Ang layo, ang na-assumption na it's not in the vicinity of 30%, which is reflected by your figures na sinuyod ninyo from the ground. Ang mas maganda nga yung figures ninyo, mas maniniwala ako sa figures ninyo.
Yeah, totoo.
Assumption niya.
Kasi may pangalan to eh, may address.
Yung ending yan, yung start. Well,
Talagang ever since PSA, mas malaki talaga ang DSWD at mas maniniwala ako sa DSWD with all due respect dahil may mga pangalan, may mga address, may kung sino-sino talaga ang nakalistang poor.
kaya ang tanong ko po, do we see the problem or not? Yan lang yung tanong
Yes.
ko eh. I mean,
Yes, we're with you in complaining about this moving targets.
even the MTFF will fail, Mr. President, kung mali ang assumptions.
I think that's the reason why Listahanan 3 is now going to be folded in the PSA and CBMS data from the ground will be submitted to the PSA once and for all so we can consolidate all accurate data from below rather than projecting or sampling and so on.
community-based monitoring.
Sila yun. Manpower nila yun. Yung CBMS po, manpower po ninyo?
No.
Kanino po?
This is going to be a combination. It's an existing project of the LGUs. They will be guided and analyzed thereafter by the PSA para isahan na lang yung ating data at hindi pa iba-iba yung measure.
Kasi actually, that listahanan used for any other programs of the DSWD? Is that important for AIX, for example?
Ma'am, ayos hindi. But for other programs, even sa other departments, like the lifeline rate ng PRC,
Yes, I think the listahanan, of which listahanan 3 is the last, ano? It's being used for lifeline rates for the ERC and other projects of other departments. In PhilHealth, for example, ginagamit din yan. Sa Unifast, whenever it gets paid by CHED, is also using listahanan 3 as the basis.
AIX does not.
AIX does not because it's derived largely by the DSWD together with the LGU when emergencies arise.
Okay. But you have computerized systems in such a way that is a beneficiary allowed to accept the benefits of more than one program of the DSWD?
Yes, they are actually. In principle, they should perhaps be called better, but the reality is there are different groups that are being addressed by different programs.
Ito ba?
So, for example,
Ano ba? Addicts.
oo.
Ito lang po for the information of everybody, especially the DSWD. Kasi
Sorry,
the Secretary is a member of the official family para ma-discuss niyo po to sa taas sa cabinet.
that's correct.
In your MTFF, the assumption 2021 poverty rate is 18.1. Okay. Kaya malakas ang loob ng economic planners, ng official family, and of the President to commit that at the end of his term, 9% ang poverty rate. So, okay? So just, input na lang po natin yan sa planning po ninyo kasi
Pero it's the same. Pero it's the same. It's still way
ito, at least we're talking to the President's sister. So, and who is
I
our
don't know if
sponsor?
that,
Madam,
if that
ito.
helps the
Madam,
cause.
okay.
But I think there's a great hope pinned on the CBMS actually consolidating data once and for all. Dahil as we know, yung PSA naman very undermanned din. And the 2020 census, as a matter of fact, was finished very late dahil nga sa COVID. So talagang may problema lahat ng datos natin.
Kami po minority sa Senate. Hindi kami aligned with the administration. Okay? Sabi ko, ang tawag namin, we are critical cooperators. We want the administration to succeed. Okay? Kasi ang success naman niya, success ng bansa eh. Okay?
Tama.
Pero, tingnan niyo naman yung mga pangako tuloy ng Presidente who is the brother of our sponsor na I hope umabot on a Sunday lunch meeting sa kanya. Okay? 20 pesos per kilo rice.
Rice.
Siyempre, binase niya yun on something. But if it was fed garbage in, garbage out, okay, ang plano sa energy, bago daw siya matapos ang kanyang termino, total household electrification. Sa hearing natin, magkano budget? 70 billion. Saan manggagaling? Di pa namin alam. Official Development Assistant. Sa housing. 6 million units, homes.
Binabala sa 3 million.
At the end of my term, 1 million a year. 1 year more than 1 year now. Wala pa eh, na actual term. So in-adjust na lang. 6 million housing units to be launched. Oh. I mean, and then the poverty incidence rate.
No, I share the minority leader's frustration. And
and I do not know the president very well, but I know he has interest in mathematics.
Yes.
Okay. Alam ko yan. Alam ni ate siguro yan. Okay.
he's math and
interested in
physics
mathematics. Okay.
major po.
Math and physics. Okay.
Yes po.
And then he always mentions governance being science-based. Okay, science-based. Pag malima, science-based means you analyze the data, make your conclusions, but the data are researched. Iba-ibang klase research, theoretical, and of course the on-the-ground research. So siguro it's time for this administration to shape up in the first step. Let's have accurate data, collect accurate data so that the scientific-based decision-making process of this administration will really be effective and based on realities on the ground, Mr. President.
Yes, I think we all share your frustration, and that is why Listahan ng 3 will now be folded. PSA hopefully is strengthened and fed through the CBMS system. And that way we get a more coherent picture in the Philippines.
When the sponsor says, Mr. President, Listahan ng 3 will be folded, ano yung parang abandoned na? Discarded na? What is it? When is it folded? Folded means?
Kasi Yung listahan ng 3 is going to be the last one. Ayon sa batas, siya na yung huli. Matapos yun, PSA na at yung ibang authorities ang magbibigay ng datos.
So,
Ma'am, sa CBMS law,
so
Yeah.
PSA has in its budget now the funding,
Yan ang problema.
the funding for the groundwork necessary to create another
ang meron
list.
yung CBMS. Kasi ayon sa CBMS law, mag-umpisa na yung CBMS to gather with 679 LGUs, and the LGUs have funded it. So we are hoping that with CBMS, the data quality is improved.
And then CBMS, ang resulta nun is a list also. It's a list. It's a list also. List ang resulta ng CBMS effort. It's also a list.
Yes, I think it will be a more detailed list with actual names and addresses, similar to listahanan with hunger incidents, housing conditions, and so on, fed through the PSA modules, and then all the departments will have a uniform set of